It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, June 27th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is wondering if this is the calm before the storm or the craziness before the storm.
It's both.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here, as always, with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. You can find us on YouTube. We're on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is the crazy calm before the storm, I guess, if we combine them. And we are going to get into some final predictions, thoughts about the 12th overall pick and some overall draft thoughts, plus some depth pick options that are still on the table, but no real update on Michkov. I think we're expecting things to happen after the draft at this point, just because it's too much at once, right?
It is probably middle of the month, maybe by the 15th or something.
Of July. July.
Not this month. I mean, this month's almost done.
But. Yeah, that's true. That is true. But in the meantime, the buyout window starts today. So we got to keep our eye on that in terms of if the Flyers decide to take that option with anybody on the team. Plus, there's trade rumors abounding. Of course, I think they get a little ridiculous at this time of year, right?
They do. This is when everybody says they do a story, their team's willing to trade the pick, and I laugh because most of the time it doesn't happen. We had one happen already, of course. That's fine. But, as an example, like if I see something, well, the Leafs are willing to trade their 23rd overall. Well, on its own, you're not getting as much as you think, whoever you are, Mr. Writer. You're just not. Now, if it's packaged with something, that's fine. But if you're just trading that pick, you're not getting one of those true defensemen that Brad Treliving says good defenseman that he's looking for. It's not going to happen that way. So I think that's where those articles are a little askew. Now, if you have a top 10 pick, then you've got some real currency.
As far as the Flyers go, I think, the weirdest one, honestly, is Marner. And I think that is clickbait because what would the point be of that at this point in the Flyers rebuild?
There's no point. And why would he do it?
No, there's no reason for him to do that at this point. Brady Shea, I'd give that a thought, but it just also the timing seems off.
No, the timing's off. I mean, he's still a good defenseman. He's physical, sure. He's not much of an offensive player anymore. They've, the Caniacs have sucked the that last bit of offense out of him. So now he's just, a rugged defenseman, more of a shutdown physical guy. I mean, they already have Risto, whether he could play or not. That's what they have. It doesn't make sense to expend assets to get him.
No, not at all. And of course, the ever-present Jacob Chychrun rumors do persist. We talked about it yesterday in the sense that, with the Senators making a deal for Ullmark, the likelihood of them doing another big deal involving their first round pick goes down a little bit. But I would want this less than almost any other deal out there, even to move up.
Sure. But I do think the likelihood of it happening isn't great. And I don't think the return on it is it's like, it's not going to be worth it. Like, you're going to give up either a second or you're going to give up some other player that you don't feel you could sign. And I just don't think they should do that right now. It doesn't. Just stay at 12. 12's a good spot. Don't worry about what Ottawa does.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a worry about yourself kind of time here. We also got some draft adjacent news related to your work, Russ, in prospect analysis in the announcement of a new CHL US Prospects Challenge, which I think is really intriguing. But what do you think about this National Team Development Program versus CHL All Stars
Love it.
series?
I'll be there. I think it's fantastic. Uh, it's kind of like, I guess, what the All-American game used to be, except now they've expanded it to other places. They've kind of been changing the format the last few years. And now instead of having to travel in January to Detroit, it's November and the weather's a lot more certain. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, so it will take place in November. So it'll be the development program team versus the CHL All Stars team. But if an American or Euro is on one of those CHL teams, they can participate as well
Right, right.
to Canadian players, which I think is important, right?
Yes.
And I think that they're going to have a rotation with the OHL and the Q and the WHL in terms of hosting.
Yep.
And I love it. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and I do like that November time slot as
Me
well.
too.
It'll be good across the board.
Now, maybe they're going to still have the All-American game in January. I don't know.
Yeah, I
And
think so.
If they do, then what this, because I was thinking about it, maybe that's not going to replace it. Maybe this is like when they don't have the 5 nations. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I know they're getting rid of the CHL top prospects game. That this
Right.
will replace that, but supposedly the All-American game will continue. And
Okay.
I don't
haven't
know.
heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know what that'll mean for the 5 Nations game, but
Yeah. Those
I
aren't
think,
every year anyhow. So it doesn't,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
but
there, not at, USA Hockey Arena. They're in other places.
right. So more opportunities to see the prospects leading up to the draft for the next few years, at least. So that should be interesting. We also got the formal announcement slash debut ish, I would say, of the Fanatics jerseys for next season, because of course the draft picks and tomorrow and Saturday's draft will be given the new Fanatics jerseys. And man, they are working overtime to build confidence in these jerseys, especially what
Why is
happened.
that, Rach?
Well, because of the baseball situation, Russ. That was a huge mistake. I think the point they're trying to emphasize here, you can take it or leave it, but the point they're trying to make is that while the baseball jerseys, they kind of redesigned in more of a vacuum, they've actually taken player and equipment manager input here into consideration, to the point that they tested a new design for the elbow and sleeve fabric because they got feedback about it. And in fact, the Flyers were part of that testing process. Last summer, they wore some prototypes during practices in order to test it out. So this is what they say, but who knows?
Well, again, not to throw cold water on it, I kind of want to see them in action the same way
Yeah.
we saw the baseball ones in action, because that's how you know. Until then, it's all just, Photoshop as far as I'm concerned.
They haven't changed the design really at all, aside from, some of these slight adjustments with the feedback. They got rid of the dimples, though, in the shoulder for the Authentics.
I could probably live with that.
I think,
But the Authentics is the key, right? So, I mean, this is
right.
where the big conversation is going to come in, because if people are going to spend $250 on it, it better be like stitched on numbers. It better be all that stuff. And if it's not, they're not going to want it. And I really want to see all the little details when it comes out, because there's a lot of Jersey people out there that care, right? That they collect these. And so we'll see. That's when we'll really know.
Right. And they don't go on sale to the public until September.
Right.
But what we have been told is that there's going to be, instead of 2 levels of jerseys, there'll be 3 levels of jerseys. So, they have like the breakaway ones that are the cheaper ones, and that's the iron-on stuff and the softer logo and all of that. And they'll have the women's cut for that as well. Then they'll have a premium, which is basically like what the top level is now, which is not authentic. But then, but then there's going to be an authentic pro, which is exactly what the players
Okay,
wear,
but here's the issue now.
with the fight strap and everything.
No, I understand what you're saying, but here's the issue. The issue is they've now created another level so they could raise the price on
Yep.
the authentic.
Oh,
A-
don't disagree that there's, a
That's why they
financial
did it.
implication here. Yeah.
And that's why no way would I buy it authentic until I see it and feel it and match it up.
Yep.
I would actually bring in one of my old authentics and match it up next to it and see
Yep.
just what's what, because I don't know that it's going to have the same weight. I don't know, like I said, if the stitching is going to be the same. These things are really important to people. They really are. And so, and there's nothing worse than spending $350 on a jersey or a sweater, or whatever you want to call it, and it gets to you and it's screwed up. It's
Yeah.
painful for people.
Well, for anybody going to the draft, Russ, you included, if you have a chance to get a little feel of the jerseys when the new
How am
picks
I going to
are
do that,
wearing
Rachel?
them,
Am I going to just bump into Macklin
ask
Celebrini when
them,
he's at the Sirius booth and just say, "Hey, Mac, what do you
how
think
do you
about
like the
this? Can I
jersey?
feel
Yeah.
it?" And they're going to be like,
Yeah,
"Usher
you
this."
do.
They're going to be like, "Usher this guy out of here."
I think it's a worthy question to
No,
ask.
it's not.
We have to talk about who's going to be in those jerseys that we're talking about, and
That's fine.
especially
I'll do that.
for the Flyers. We're going to ask our last questions and talk about that 12th overall pick coming up next. It's summer, which always makes me think of baseball, and especially with the Phillies having a ton of fun this season, I want to be there in person as much as possible. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. It makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last minute deals, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying those coveted MLB tickets in your town, the summer concerts, and more. My favorite part of the Game Time app is that it's great for getting notified about last minute flash deals, and they let you save even more with zone deals, where you pick a section and let Game Time choose the seat for you. Best of all, they have all-in pricing, so there's no surprise fees at checkout, and your tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through email. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. On tomorrow's show, we're going to have our final thoughts. It'll be draft day. Plus, we're going to talk about the NHL awards and your poll results for the week leading into the draft. So, for the 12th overall pick, because this is the big one, right? This is the one that we're focused on for the most part for the Flyers. With the fact that Michkov is coming sooner, do you think that the Flyers are going to change their priorities a little bit?
No, I still think it's defense or center. It's always going to be defense or center.
Yeah, I think that has always been the plan. And I think that the center part of it does have Michkov in mind to begin with.
But I
For
think it's just
whenever.
has it the whole team in mind too. Though.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. It always did. But I think it was, they knew they had to have somebody at center ready for whenever Michkov arrived. And so that was part of the plan to begin with. His coming sooner doesn't change that.
Right. I feel like the prognosticating community, they're too like-minded. That's what I think. And I myself have some different things, obviously, with Teddy Stiga and whatever. And I feel like there's not enough of that from the big mainstream ones. And because, again, hey, it's your rankings. I'm not telling you how to rank it. I'm just surprised that it's sort of more consensus-y than usual, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so to a large degree. I think, when you go in the rankings, when you go into the mock drafts, I think there's a little
That's
bit of,
when it
that's
gets,
when people diverge a little bit.
yes.
But in the rankings, I feel like it's been pretty consistent for a while now, and there hasn't been a ton of, last minute risers or fallers here. I think that sort of happened about a month to 6 weeks ago
Yeah.
when the season ended for those players. I
Yeah.
think there was kind of a shift at that point when the playoffs ended in the CHL and the after the Frozen Four for some college players and all of that. I
All
think
of that,
that's
sure.
that's when the big shift happened, and things have not changed a ton since then. And I find that interesting just because there's usually somebody that shoots up last minute and is all of a sudden you think is going to go like 3 or 4 instead of 7 or something.
Right. Yeah, no question. I think that is true. And I just feel like even when I had to do my one mock on Sirius, that even Shane and I, surprisingly, we didn't talk about it, matched more than I thought we would just on the 12, 13 picks we talked about. And I was surprised at that. And if he didn't have one guy in one spot, I had that guy 2 other spots away. Like it was all really
Right.
close. Now, as we got past like 15, that's when things kind of diverged.
Right. Right. I just think like there's been some surprises in the like 5 to 10 range in past years, and I just feel like that's not going to happen here.
Like the surprise will be, Hellenius doesn't go 4, he goes 8. But like the top 10's going to mostly be what you think the top 10's going to be, with maybe one exception, right? And
Right.
and so that's what I'm talking about. You could shuffle the
Yeah.
deck chairs however you want, but I think it's going to be mostly the same guys.
I'm wondering if there are deals to be made, not just for the Flyers, but at all, because it feels like the league is ripe for it and it started. But is that all before the draft? Like, did all those teams that were going to do something get it out of their system and we're set, or will there be more deals on draft day?
I think it's mostly set. I do think there's always that possibility when one player is not picked by 6 or 7 and a team is going to choose within the next 3 or 4 picks that they're going to make a call. So I think that's still going to occur. But for the most part, I think stuff is set as far as that goes.
Yeah, it feels like it.
Yeah, I don't get the other feeling. Now, I'll get to talk to GMs on Thursday. So I'll see if, I get a feeling. I'll put it up there on Twitter, but most of the time you don't. And last year there were no trades at the draft. Now this year we already had, so I don't know. It really could be over.
Right. So, yeah, I just think the Flyers will end up picking at 12. Now, what happens with the later pick, I think, is still a question for me.
Hmm.
Because is there going to be somebody late in the first round that they're going to want to move up a few spots for? Possibly.
Yeah.
Or are they going to be willing to trade it away because they know whoever will be available, 2 picks later, whatever they're moving down to. But I feel pretty strongly that they're going to pick at 12, and I guess I'll eat those words if I'm wrong.
Well, that's fine. I'll eat them too. I mean, I would say this though. With like the stuff like Sens people are putting out there. Well, the Sens might trade out of this year and go into next year. Obviously, whoever's doing that is targeting the Flyers because they have 2 first-round picks next year. But all I could tell you is this. It doesn't make sense for the Ottawa Senators to do that and to push
No.
development back another year. Now, you got a goalie, you're going to try and make the playoffs this year, that's fine. But you still are building to some degree, and it doesn't make sense to push back a year of development, trade a year back. I don't know why they would do that.
Yeah, they just seem to be more of a fix things through trades team than a
Right.
draft and develop. And at some point, that's going to give, right? And they've
Correct.
run into cap problems because of it.
Yep.
And so I just don't get that strategy. at
Yeah, and
all.
I'm not sure
I-
that's their strategy anymore. We don't really know with Steve Stais until it actually happens this year. So we
Yeah.
have to keep an eye on that.
Yep, that is true. So looking at that 12th overall pick, it's impossible to predict who it will be and who will be available at that time, but you can make some educated guesses. And
Mhm.
the greater prognosticating community has said that the most likely players for the Flyers to take at 12 are Carter Yakimchuk, Berkeley Catton, which is shocking to me because I don't think he'll be available.
I don't either, but you never know. It's slightly possible.
Yeah, and then Consta Hellenius, which is also not, I think, 100% likely.
Would be surprising, and I don't want to be the one to outright just say something's not going to happen based on the list. But the Hockey News with G. Bouillon, that has 0% chance of happening.
0%. 0%. I know. I saw that. I was like, nope.
It's less than 0.
Absolutely.
It's really less than
Yeah.
0. It's never going to
Well,
happen.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but you did because it was on our sheet.
It's on
But
the list. I mean, I can't ignore it.
right, right. But everybody else was pretty much consistent with those other options, and I think they're all good options for different
Yes.
reasons. My gut says they're gonna go with the center for that top pick if the right one is available, but then they'll go for the top defenseman available if the right center isn't available. I think that's what you do
Yeah.
for the
I mean,
Flyers.
again, I picked Yakimchuk for a few reasons when people were asking me. First was based on what the player said. Second, based on the player feedback about the team. Third was, if you think about it, they're targeting a particular type of defenseman, and they're pretty sure he's going to be broken away from the pack, which I agree with.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any chance he's going top 10. So I think he's a guy that was kind of easy to identify that they have a realistic chance of getting and would fill needs on the
Yep.
team.
And he's his own tier in a lot of
Right.
ways.
Yes.
There's like the top tier of defensemen, there's Carter, and then there's everybody else.
Yeah.
Too many picks below.
Yeah.
So I get it. And he would be a really good addition to
Yeah.
the team.
And I think that's where that comes from. The Catton stuff comes from if he falls to them. But again, there's no guarantee. I mean, Michkov, yes, they took. Other guys they haven't. So I don't know. I don't know if they would take Catton. I think they would, but I don't know that for sure. They would have to make a heck of a choice there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, the Flyers will have to pick beyond the first round, and there's some good depth options that Russ has his eyes on for the Flyers, and we will get to those guys coming up next. All right, so Russ has a couple of these options. Want to get to them right away. Melvin Fernstrom is a Swedish forward, ranked kind of mid-second round to end of third round right now. So obviously, as you go further in the draft, the ranking gets wider and wider for these guys. But why do you want to talk about him, and why for the Flyers?
Oh, because again, he kind of fits the bill at being a goal scorer, and I feel like the Flyers are still looking for that to some degree. And he's overseas, so they don't have to worry about, contract or anything for a little while. He's got good enough size, he's got good speed, but he knows how to score. He knows how to shoot from different angles. If you start watching him, you realize that 31 goals in J20 is really good. It stands out. Both he and I weren't sure if it was top of the league, but it may have been. And he's going to try out for the XHL next year, and he feels pretty good about that. So, the progression on him is really good. If you got him at some point in the second, that's a heck of a pick.
Yeah, he's under contract in the SHL for 2 more seasons, but that's fine because that's a good development path for him. And like you said, he's making the jump. He did play a few games in the SHL.
He did
this past season, but it'll be his first real SHL season upcoming. And I think he's not huge, but he's 6 feet, and I think that'll be important for him to develop into his size and figure out what kind of player he will be at the pro level in terms of physicality.
Well,
too,
I will say, I would say that according to Huddle Instat, 49% puck battles won, 60% shots on net. 60.
That is fantastic.
Yeah. And he's good around the net. He is. So just something.
Yeah, I really like him as an option, and I like that he'll have time to cook, which is super important.
The full article's on sportsalgy.com if you want to check it
out. The other guy you wanted to talk about is Tanner Adams, and he's a lot closer, a Long Island kid, just like you, I guess.
Yep. I do keep track of the Long Island guys, and he's one. So what did you like about him?
Well, again, he's 5'11". So, similar size, but I think that, being part of the US development program, very peripherally, like not a permanent fixture there, but at least having exposure to it is really good.
Hmm.
Really good results in the USHL, 33 points in 49 games played, managed to play a few playoff games with 5 points in 4 games. So that's pretty good considering the team got eliminated, but he had good results there. And he's going to Providence College, which is a good program. So that's always a good indicator to me of, if they're going to play college, that's a smart move for a guy like
Yeah, and
him.
Connolly's
And
going to be there. There's a couple good
yeah,
players that are going there that could
yeah,
score. Yeah, I mean, I like his speed. I think because the guys that get to break away from the program because they're not getting enough playing time, the right ice time, the right whatever, and can put up good numbers are guys that have really separated themselves from the pack in a way. And so I think that was a positive thing for him to do because again, you look at him and you say, and remember, he played as a freshman this year at
yep,
Providence. And so like he wasn't getting talked about playing as a true freshman. And he had pretty good numbers. He had like, I don't know, 13, 15 points, if I remember, something like that. And that's good. So you look at that and you say, wow, this guy, he's already gotten exposed to college. He's, not struggling. There's definitely upside here. He's played with elite players. He's already pretty sturdy at 183, probably going to get a little stronger because he gets to work out 3 days a week. I'll take him. I'll take him in the,
yeah.
late second, early third.
Yeah, and he's a little on the younger side
Yes.
here for being a college freshman, right? It
Yes.
seems like he started a year early or, because his birthday is early September, right?
Yeah, I don't
And
think it's
that's
a year
always
early. It's like me. I'm an October birthday. When I went to
right,
school in college, I was 17 until October, So it's just
right.
it's just the way it falls out birthday wise. But that does give a little extra runway. It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. And I always like that in terms of development. It remains to be seen if he could ever play center. It feels like he's a winger,
That feels like a
but
winger.
he can try at center, I guess.
He's
It'll
got a good
depend on how
shot. He's got a good
yeah.
shot. He's one. And I'll just mention if you go to sportsology.com, I just interviewed Linus Eriksson. He's my last interview. Like that's it until the draft. I am done. But he's another Swede who's got some good things to talk about. And we talked about New York Bagels.
Excellent. Like, he was the first New York Bagel player that we hinted about on
Yes.
yesterday's show. I think, looking at Erickson as another option, he is ranked a little bit lower, I would say, more
Yes.
toward end of second round. So maybe he's a third round
He could
option.
be a third or fourth. He's going to go for another year in Allsvenskan, but he's also a center, and he could be an excellent third
Hmm.
line center. And he's really good two-way, and he's starting to score more goals. Like he's working on a shot. He's a playmaker, and so those kinds of things, he may take like this 1 year in Allsvenskan may turn into like some games in the SHL, then another season in the SHL, then he comes over and maybe plays a year in the AHL, and then you got a shot. And if he's like a third or fourth rounder, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I love it. So these are some good depth options
Yes.
for the Flyers to keep an eye on. We'll see what happens. The draft starts tomorrow, so we will, of course, be following that closely. We've got one more show until the draft begins. We'll be talking more draft and NHL awards on tomorrow's show. That'll do it for today. If you have any mailbag questions for us heading into free agency next week, I can't believe we're going to be talking about that
It's all just
then.
a whirlwind, man.
I know. Or, post draft questions about
Yep.
anything that may occur in the future that we don't know yet. Let
Yeah,
us
maybe
know.
somebody forgets what somebody's name is. Maybe, you never know what's going
Yeah.
to happen at the draft.
I know, especially in Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
Let us know on Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube that's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Have a great day, everyone.